and welcome into the New England Hockey Journal's RinkWise Podcast. I am Evan Marinofsky, joined as always by Patrick Donnelly. Pat, how are you?
We're okay. It's crappy weather day out there today.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Like May 22nd and it's 45. And I mean, the rain part, like, you know, you get that in May, but like, man, I thought we were past that.
When I was wearing shorts and t-shirts in early April and mid-April, I said, done with jeans for a while, done with pants and coats and sweatshirts. Not the case.
Brutal.
Not the case. And, of course, it's on a day we come in. We came into the studio today. We're back together again, which is great.
It's reminding us of the weather we typically get during the prep hockey season.
That's right.
And we got some of that to talk about today.
Well, it's true. And I will also say, when it's crappy weather like this out, reminds me, as cold as a rink might be, I will take that any time over a soccer field or anything outdoors, because it's just it's so unpredictable with weather and wind. It's cold in rinks, but cold is manageable.
Believe me, I was at Milton versus Weymouth for baseball on Monday. Weymouth's really good this year. Milton's a pretty good D2 team. It said 60 degrees on the thermometer. Coldest 60-degree day I've ever felt. It was
thermometers seem to lie.
Dead to left field the entire game. I was frozen.
Yeah, no, I think that's worse than any. You could pick the coldest rink. I think that's worse because it's not manageable. Anyway, we are here to talk Mass Hockey Festival, boys and girls. It was this past weekend, and it's over the course of 2 weekends. New England District Boys Festival was about a month ago. It was Easter weekend. One weekend they whittle everything down. Our selections are out for that on our site, but we're doing this kind of right in the aftermath of the Mass Festival. Girls Festival, the first weekend was like a month ago.
Yeah, I guess 3 weeks ago, because it was a week after New England Festival.
That's right. So we'll start on the boys' side, and then we'll go over to the girls.
Yeah.
Boys was the last 2 weekends. Lovell for the second one. I do love Lovell.
Yes.
It's always a fun place to be at. The food is actually really good. The only thing I would change is like when I'm sitting in the stands up above, there's always like that railing right in front of you, and everyone's kind of awkwardly like, do I sit in the third row and look over it, but I don't see the other corner? Do I sit in the first row? It can be tough.
You know what? I think I may have broken the system this weekend.
You hacked Lovell.
So usually I love Rink 2 at Lovell, because when I'm at these things, and like it's, you know, Marlboro, you know, the rinks kind of vary, but like at least Marlboro, you get an opportunity to kind of like you're obviously above everything, which is good for us. You get to see like, you know, the lanes and everything open up and kind of how things unfold. And I like how in Marlboro, like, even if you're down the end, you're still above. You can see it all. But I like being like you have the opportunity to go in the middle.
Yeah,
I like being in the middle because I feel like I'm not like sometimes your eyes glaze over if the play's at the other end. So you can kind of see everything a little bit better. And so at Lovell, I love being in Rink 2 because I can be in the middle, perched above, not where the benches are, but you know the far side, and you get to see everything. It's a pretty good angle. Then Rinks 1 and 2 are tough because of the railing, like you said. Rink 3, I believe, is where
the far right one.
Yes. So that's where the girls were on Sunday, and like the first session, I'm kind of just first row, sitting down, kind of leaning over the railing here and there. And the next two, I noticed these guys behind me, way down in the corner, third row, standing on the bench of the very last row. And I was like, oh, well, if there's some space down there, maybe I'll try that. I did. You don't have to. You can see everything. You don't have to lean over.
Aren't you kind of blocking the people who are?
No, because you're so say you're looking in Rink 3, you're looking down the ice. So you got the windows behind you to the left, and then in this back right corner of the stands, there's no windows. It's just like the stairwell behind you.
Oh, okay, all right.
So
I'll keep that. People keep that in mind.
Got the wall to lean on. You can see everything.
All right.
You can pretty much see behind the net. Like you might not see all of it, but at least you don't have to lean over all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're cooking.
So for everybody out there who's got that same problem as us,
now there can be like massive amounts of people in that little corner.
I know. I blew my cover.
Like ants. So boys.
Yes, boys. For you, you know, over these past 2 weeks, you know, who whether it's 08s, 09s, who kind of whose stock rose the most for you?
What's funny is I've been in this job since the fall of 2022, so I've seen 3 of these now, and it's given me the opportunity to watch the 08s from when they're 15 to now at 17 years old, and you watch them progress, and to watch not just them at festival, but them over the course of the fall, spring, summer. Some people have progressed a lot. Some people have regressed, or at least the pack has caught up to them. I think when you see, even watching the 10s, there are kids you watch and you go, well, this isn't going to be the group in 2 years because kids hit puberty at different points. Kids develop at different rates. So the 08s, watching them was really cool because it's like, man, this looks a lot different than it did a couple of years ago. And we're not going to go into the people who have been caught up to. I want to mainly focus on those who've risen. And like one kid...
Who have caught up.
They've caught up, yes. Who hath risen, so to speak. But so one person is Will Mancuso. Will Mancuso is someone who I don't remember a lot of 2 years ago with Festival or any part of it. I know he was sort of someone coming out of the MIA that people were after, ends up at St. Mark's. And I thought he was the best 08 forward over the 2 weeks, which it says a lot where he's come, because there's a lot of good 08 forwards. So to show how far he's come, powerful skater, just a wicked shot, dominant at times in a lot of these games over the last 2 weekends. So he's someone to me that has progressed. I think, he's slated to be back at St. Mark's next year. So he's someone who I absolutely think is going to make an impact. And I think is going to be an NHL draft prospect in prep next year, which is awesome. Someone else, Tommy Wilkinson. I liked him a lot over the winter with Thayer. He's got a wicked shot, knows how to score, gets to dirty areas, can drive play. He's someone who ended up making it, which I was really happy for him for. I had him in my own picks. So he's someone that's stock has risen quite a bit. Owen McHale's another interesting one. Owen McHale is a pest. Owen McHale, you watch him, he just, I remember watching him with Dexter and even like Junior Eagles stuff during the fall, and he just hard hitter, annoying to play against. It's like, all right, that's cool. Like, let's, where's the production? Mm-hmm. And he had that this winter with Dexter, and he had that at the festival. He was scoring, he was producing, he was creating offense, and he was playing that physical, tough game that was just, he's a power forward. And it's like, all right, like that, not only did McHale make it, which I was really happy for him about, but I think he's also moved into like Division I territory, where like a Division I school is going to look at him and say, he's someone who can impact us anywhere in the lineup. He's annoying to play against, a hard forechecker, but he can also produce offense. And that opens up a number of opportunities, I think, because not a lot of kids play like that anymore.
Yes.
So like that, having that element is really good. And you don't see that in prep school a lot either. Like, I'm not saying these kids, these are like rich kids or anything, but you don't see a lot of that, like just grit, toughness, heart. You see it with JP Missouri. JP Missouri is one of those players who plays like that, and he's at Dexter as well. So maybe Dexter might be tough to play against next year. But not that they haven't been already. They have been, but like, annoying physicality, stuff like that. McHale has that in spades. So he really shined for me. And then Brian McFadden on defense. I don't believe he made Festival last year or made camp out of Festival last year. He did end up at Select 16 camp. I think he's moved to the top of the pack for 08 defensemen in Massachusetts. He is that good. He's 6'5", great puck mover, offensive, shut down in his own zone. Like with Mancuso, I think McFadden is I think McFadden's likely a definite draft pick next year, not just a prospect, someone that I think NHL teams should keep tabs on. And as of now, no one, can change. He is slated to be back at Thayer. As of now, could change, but he's slated to be back at Thayer now. So he's of my 08 stock risers. And then 09's like Owen Kaler. Didn't have a ton of points for Mount this past year for that 15 team. But I went back and looked at my notes from last year's festival. Phenomenal. He was phenomenal last year, and he was phenomenal this year. Made it, which was awesome. He's someone I think I believe he'll be back at with the Mount 16s. That 09 Mount group's going to lose quite a bit to NTDP, USHL. He's someone who I think is primed to step up and make a big impact. Two others, Stephen Panett and Gavin O'Toole, hand up, didn't know who they were going to the festival. Didn't know who they were, but that's why you go. They stood out in both games. They both made it. Driving play, creating offense, some two-way play in there as well. I think it was Panette. There was one shift where like he just wouldn't give up the puck. It was actually really funny, and ended up with a goal. So those two for sure. And then on D to round it out, Preston Abbott. Preston Abbott was dominant over the two games. I think he's going to New Hampton. So that's a really good get for Connor Gorman up there. He was phenomenal. So those are my stock risers. Those are at 10s, they're starting out. No stock rising there. But those 08s and 09s rose the most. And one other, 08, Noah Servillas. Noah Servillas played really well, but he kind of just stayed at the top of the pack.
And McFadden's kind of had this big charge here going back to last summer, because I remember you writing about him, and we talked about him in the fall going into the prep season, someone we were really excited about, and it's starting to really take off for him.
It is. He was hurt for a lot of the Thayer season, so we didn't really get to see a lot. I think he had like 9 points in 14 games because he did come back at the end, but he's someone like, I think a full prep season will really, really help him. I think if he had played fully at Thayer this year, like I think he'd be able to do fine in the Q or try for the USHL, but I think a good strong year of prep, fully no injuries, would really help him quite a bit.
Yeah, and moving on, just sticking with the 08s and 09s for right now, and a little bit of the 10s, just looking at some kids who may have not made the camps that you thought should have. So starting with the 08s, who you got? Yeah,
two Thayer people. Michael Federico, I thought had a really strong camp. Both weekends, I thought he was really good. Great puck mover. Didn't make it. Ty Heimovitz, he's someone else whose stock has risen over the last couple of years. He made it his first year. He didn't make it last year. Felt like, all right, maybe people are catching up to him, but he's gotten bigger. He really came into his own this winter at Thayer. So I thought he was someone who had a really good chance to make it and didn't. And then Gavin Callahan, I was shocked. I would have him up there with McFadden. Like, phenomenal puck mover. I've always been a huge proponent of Gavin Callahan. I think he's a guy that you can trust on breakouts. He's good, good stick, especially in his own zone. I was shocked he didn't make it. I didn't really understand that. But so those were my 08s. And then 09s, Troy Hamlin, I thought was fantastic. Over the 2 weeks, he was at Pope Francis, and I believe he'll be at Frederick Gunn this upcoming year. Shocked he didn't make it. I thought he was fantastic. And Jacoby Palmer, I thought he was arguably the most noticeable 09 defenseman, phenomenal puck mover, all that. He's with the Long Island Gulls, I believe. I don't want to say where he's going to be next year because I don't know exactly. But he had a phenomenal 2 weeks or 2 weekends, and I was shocked that he didn't make it. And then for the 10s, Nico Santella, a forward, I believe, for St. John Shrewsbury. I thought he was really good over the 2 days. Alexander Guo, I thought he was arguably the best defenseman the first weekend of Festival, and then he was strong and a good puck mover at the final 40. And then my big one, and people are going to say, oh, Evan, you're biased because you're from Framingham. Colin Walsh. I don't understand this. I had Colin Walsh in my picks for national camp. I don't even think he made regionals. I was shocked. Thought he was fantastic. One of the bigger players, able to get to scoring areas. Didn't make it. Difference of opinion, I guess. But I thought that he definitely deserved some sort of recognition. So yeah, those were my snubs. I'm sure other people have snubs of their own, but those were my guys who I thought should have made it.
Yeah, we'll dig in a little more to the 2010s now. It's always fun this time of year. You get the program, you see all the list of the 2010s, and even some of the 09s who might not be in prep yet, and you get to see 24, 25, or 25, 26 school, and some of them like, whoa, and so this is the fun part. What 2010s do you think whether they were young players in prep last year or are making the jump to prep, that you think can make an impact this season?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because 09s last year, outside of the Rivers 09s, and Caden Pellegrino had a great year, and there were only a handful of 09s, Warsofsky, Kovaluzzi, Manella, but it really is I'd say 10 or 11, like Danny Patch, 10 or 11 09s. So, and that's all across the region. That's from everywhere. So again, picking 10 or 11 from just Mass, the likelihood is they're not all going to be impactful next year. But Jack Quealy's an easy one from Sebs. He had a strong year this past year. Austin Wu from Sebs, I think led all 10s in scoring in prep this past year, 17 points in 27 games. So I think those two are easy pencil in. Blake Wilikowski, I didn't know much about him. He's going to be at Milton next year. Milton's losing, I think, their top 2 scorers. He looks like someone, he has the size, he's got the two-way ability. He looks like someone that Jim Gaudette can pencil in next year and rely upon. We'll get to him in a bit. An easy one is Carter Felt. This is kind of a slam dunk. Obviously, he's really good. He plays kind of like a Matthew Tkachuk style game. He's got such a high compete. I use pest in the best way possible, just like someone who's always driving play, always getting under opponent's skin. But a large part of that is because Rivers is losing their entire top six.
Yep.
So Felt will pretty much have any opportunity, I would imagine, that he wants. Owen London at Lawrence Academy, great hands. Robert Deckline at Belmont Hill. He was one of the best forwards over the 2 weekends. And I think, Bell Hill should have a lot of people involved in the mix up in those forward lines, but I think he'll fight for a spot. And Sam Lee's another one at Bell Hill, I think, who will certainly fight. And then you get on D, Jordan Marzi at Rivers. Rivers isn't losing a ton on D, so that's where they're going to be at their strongest. I still think he probably factors in. Freddie Meyer has no problem playing younger players, so I'd assume that he gets factored in. Logan Cotter at St. Mark's, I would argue, might have been the best offensive defenseman both weekends. We all know Carl Corzini loves him, an offensive defenseman, loves turning a guy into, a 50-point getter or whatever. I think this is probably his next, project in making sure that he's an offensive guy and also being responsible in his own zone. And then Nicholas Ware, Bell Hill, really good defenseman. People are really high on this kid that I talked to. So I think he could end up making an impact at Bell Hill next year. They're going to be losing quite a bit there. So those are my 10s, I think, who could make an impact. Again, it's really hard to do given how there are older players waiting in the wings. Mm-hmm. I would also add that prep is getting younger by the year. So maybe it isn't a crazy thing to think that some 10s will have a big impact. Yeah.
And wrapping up with the boys here, just kind of a fun thing to do looking ahead. Who are some 2010s that might have NTDP aspirations?
This is the big question every year that everybody asks. And it's funny because when I put together my same story I did on the 09s last year, kind of easy. It was like, all right, well, Carter Meyer, Finn Sears, Sam Pandolfo. And then I think Paulo Gilberto was someone I thought about at the time. And I forget who else, if there was anybody else, but it was pretty clear who it was. One thing I wrote about online was these 2010s, the kids with NTDP aspirations, unfortunately follow last year.
Yes.
It is not, I think it's likely that Meyer, Sears, and Pandolfo are top players on that team. And they were, fairly sure bets going into camp. And we knew for 2 years they were going to go to Plymouth. This year, I don't think it looks quite like that. I don't think there's as many, but it's also is it fatigue? Is it all right, I'm comparing these kids to Carter Meyer? That's an unfair ask. So taking everything out of it, Jack Quealy is someone to me, I think from talking to other people, from watching with my own eyes, I think he's the most complete player. I think he's a 200-foot guy. People keep kind of comparing him to a Teddy Mutrin, and it's not just because they both went to Sebs. I think to me he's someone that should be an evaluation camp kid at the very least next year. I also put Austin Wu as someone there. He's powerful. He's got I keep using that word with him, but that's what he is. Powerful stride, powerful shot. The question will be, how can he build off the points he put up last year? Because, again, 17 points in 27 games is damn good. How do you build on that? And if he builds on that, then it's going to be hard for them not to offer him at least a camp invite. And then Blake Wilikowski's another kid. He had a phenomenal festival. I think, he should get opportunity with Milton next year. And if he does, I think it's going to be hard for them to ignore it. And then, I don't have a ton of other names for NTDP. I think the big thing is it's how kids develop throughout the year. It's not insane. I remember Caden Danya with the 08s. He, I don't think, was at Select 15 camp for his Select 15s, and he ends up at NTDP camp. Mm-hmm. And I don't have this confirmed, but I'm pretty sure they probably saw him playing a Belmont Hill or a Governors because they were looking at Thornborough or Bosco. To me, that could easily happen this year, where they go to where the NTDP goes to a prep game or to a local 15 only game and says, wait, who is that kid? That kid looks way better than I remember, and suddenly they have a camp invite. So I don't think it's going to be the same sure bets for the team that it was this year, but you should have some kids in the mix.
Yeah, and you hear that stuff all the time, especially college recruiting. A coach will be there to watch someone else, and all of a sudden, whoa, who's this?
Yeah.
And, so I remember with the college recruiting process story we did for the girls last year, Julia Laughlin was in a similar boat. You're, just happened to be in the right place at the right time and had a good game. And, that's all it takes sometimes.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Fun fact, not to bring up my own hockey career because it's boring and nobody cares, but I was called up to varsity my freshman year after losing 8-0 to BC High. JV, and it was because they thought I played a great game on defense. And I remember thinking, I actually kind of felt like I did, but I was like, we lost 8-0.
What was your plus minus?
I think it was pretty good. I would weirdly, in those blowout games, be on the ice for no goals against. I remember there was a fall game that we lost 7-0, and I was out there for no goals against. So I always take pride in that. You can look at my elite prospects, not a heck of a lot of points, but not a lot of points given up in the other direction either. So
maybe they saw your huddle highlight.
The one huddle highlight, yes. If you guys want to go see what I can do, Girls wise, who were your stock risers this past weekend?
Yeah, not as much to get into here as far as quote unquote snubs or anything, just because those rosters are actually probably coming out in about a minute.
I was going to say we might be live for the roster.
We could be live, just running down the list. That would make for a great podcast. So we'll just kind of stick to the stock risers here. Girls in the 08s, Brooke Bartlett, I'm kind of double dipping here between festival and Final 40. I thought Brooke Bartlett had an awesome festival. Just, putting herself in the right place at the right time. Her shot seemed to have a little bit more of a jump than from, the 1 or 2 times I saw Rivers in the prep season. And someone who caught my eye at the New Year's prep puck drop back in January and sort of, caught my eye again. It's just a good player who can drive play. And then Ava DeCourcy, I thought was really good at the festival, and then maybe had a quiet Saturday. At least I didn't notice her as much at Final 40 on Saturday, but kind of took over play consistently on Sunday. And she's someone who we had pretty high hopes for, I think, going into Nobles last year, transferring from 2 productive seasons at Tilton, going into Nobles, and, big opportunity for her. But, she didn't need to be that stud number 1, everything falls on your shoulders. She might have a greater opportunity for that this year, and I think she showed, at Festival that hey, that high end skill is still there, and able to recognize those skating lanes for the rush, skated effectively. Her timing's good on the breakout, and then a couple others. Merritt Fitch, who is at Middlesex, I believe. She's in a similar boat as Leah Hafer, who is at Dexter, if memory serves. And they were two that, especially the first weekend at Festival, I thought, pretty good carrying the puck through the neutral zone, good heads up, pretty good hands in transition, and just, you get those plays where your eyebrows kind of raise, with a quick stick handle or something, and you're like, oh, okay.
All right, I see you.
Yeah. And then Inez Kamas in net, she was one who she's had an interesting year. And I mentioned kind of in my storylines, that group of 08 goalies is pretty interesting just because they've all kind of been in timeshares in prep. And they've all had...
Which is hard. That's hard to develop in.
Yeah, you get Addie Sutherland and Annabelle Aiken. Sutherland's a junior, Aiken's a sophomore, but they're both 08s. They're both at Dexter. They've both pretty much shared the net evenly. Same thing with, Hayes at Dexter and Kamas at St. Mark's. She was behind Jackie Wright this year. It was a little more of an even split the year before, not so much this year. And, she had some ups and downs. But she showed well with Assabet. And, I thought had a really good Final 40. She was, I thought, the most consistent goalie, consistently making quality saves. And then another one, as far as the forwards go, is Devin Moore from Dexter as well. Just someone from the MIA last year and into, prep season this year, just a really high compete. The motor's always going, and kind of that hockey sense of, the skill, at least, in these vacuum sequences might not be, standing out as much consistently, but just someone who those little things like stopping on the net instead of doing a flyby and, just making yourself available in those scoring areas. And it paid off for her with a couple of goals this past weekend. And then Aislinn Van Vliet, she's at BB&N.
Great name.
Yeah. I always think of Fred Van Vliet in the NBA.
That's awesome.
But she's going to have a lot of opportunity at BB&N next year, where they lost Lexi Mara, they've lost Emmy Biotti, Brenna O'Reilly, and she, I thought, had a really good Sunday at Final 40, just sort of in the same line as DeCourcy, just pretty active on the breakout, taking her chances, jumping into the play, and I thought she handled pressure really well, just kind of recognizing when she doesn't have something there, and she made some good reverses, and it just kind of opened everything else up on the other side of the ice. Then with the 09s, Simone Burns, she's part of that really young group at Dexter, Rivers, excuse me, And Rivers has a really young group of forwards that I would expect to take a pretty big jump this coming year. And, you know, Jane Daly and Bella Freitas don't need any introduction. And I was telling you, I don't want to sound like the archaic baseball scout in Moneyball, but like you just go off the eye test or like, you know, I don't know what it is, but this player has it.
When I know.
Yeah,
and with your daughter, I know.
No, but Jane Daly's an electric player. And, you know, Simone Burns was on that line with Freitas and Daly at Final 40, and she was driving play just as much as they were. She was a really strong complement to them. Her speed was a huge factor. I wrote about, you know, this assist she had where, you know, a little bit of a funky breakout. Freitas kind of ends up hitting her with the stretch pass and off to the races. The feet are just instantly moving and driving wide in the offensive zone. And it was just like, if you blink, you missed it. Just this laser cross crease pass right on the money for an easy one-timer for Daly. It was a hell of a goal. Jacqueline King, she didn't make it to Final 40, which I was a little surprised about. She's a young defender at Cushing. She's someone who I thought, like, in the same line of, you know, DeCourcy and Van Vliet, just, you know, moving the puck effectively, skated really well. And, you know, I thought she was really aggressive at the offensive blue line, had a lot of pinches and pretty much all paid off. So she was someone I thought read those really well. Ava Miller, Final 40, she stood out in Festival as well. Undecided for where she's going next year. But again, another person who I think handled pressure well, kind of read the play well in the breakout. You know, she kind of spun off some pressure and hit a little slip pass to Freitas there, which sparked that rush with Burns and Daly. And then Brooke Carlson had a pretty productive year at Governors, and kind of a power forward type, big body. She's going to, you know, work in the slot a lot, and, you know, she found those dangerous areas, got a lot of chances, didn't really come to fruition, you know, got robbed a couple times, but someone who with Mia Daly and Lana Harden worked really well. And, you know, her sister Megan, I think, had maybe a lot of the headlines, I guess, last summer because she made the U18 camp. And Brooke was someone I thought had a really good fall. It carried into the prep season. It carried into this past weekend.
And then there's always the fun question. We did this on the boys of some of the 10s who can make an impact in prep next season. Who do you think that could be?
Yeah, and some of these were already in prep. Some of them are making the jump to prep. I mean, starting on defense, you know, Maddie Humber, she was at St. Paul's. Her sister Caroline was a really good senior. She's off to Wesleyan. Maddie Humber, I thought, was one of the best defenders in the 2010s both weekends. She was, especially in the Final 40, she was taking every single opportunity to lead the rush, and it was pretty effective. You know, just a strong skater, and, you know, read those plays well, leading the rush, and, you know, had some good breakout passes. Vanessa Hall is someone who, you know, we were pretty excited about jumping from St. Mary's to Phillips Andover last year.
I was going to say, why do I know that name?
And
that's
she
exactly why.
Hardly played this year. You know, Andover was, you know, they're pretty deep, and especially their top 6, their top 4, and, you know, those are the kids that were going to play for Martha Fenton. But, you know, they lose Molly Boyle. Maybe there's an opportunity for Hall to slide up in the lineup a little more and get some more minutes. Chloe Rabazi at Dexter. Her sister Kylie is at Rivers. So Chloe's coming out of Burlington, going to Dexter next year. And Dexter's losing, you know, Elena Dunn, Maddie Murphy, I think one other. I think Emma McPherson. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity on defense for her. And she's someone who is sort of like already kind of a bigger frame among the 2010s, can kind of do all 3 zones well. And then Liz Levering at Nobles, you know, Sophia's sister, she's someone who I think, you know, Nobles pretty young defense. They had Francie Ames playing defense this year. Francie Ames is a really good forward prospect. I don't know if they're going to want her playing defense again, so maybe that opens an opportunity for Liz Levering to slide right in. And then up front, Kelsey McPherson, she's moving from Hopkinton to St. Paul's, like one of the quietest 30-goal seasons as an 8th grader in the MIA this past year.
That's incredible.
I feel like I didn't even hear it.
Well, I want to add to this. Kelsey McPherson's brother is Cam, who I just forgot about when we were talking about stock risers. He is a stock riser in the 08s. He quietly put up, like, I think 30 or 40 points as a freshman, and he quietly had another great year this past year. So I would like to add Cam as like a stock riser. Yeah,
so she had, you know, 30-plus goals as an 8th grader playing up with the high school kids, and just, you know, both weekends, just a really strong, powerful game. You know, she drove the, you know, play as a good puck carrier. couple goals around the net. Ella Schieber at Williston, as well as Ava Carr at Williston. Kind of different skill sets, but Schieber, I thought, really thought the game really well and was just in good spots, especially in the defensive zone, providing support as the center. Or, at festivals, nobody touched the puck when her line was on the ice. Like, it was just bang, bang in the cycle all day. Tegan Beigel had some good chances both weekends. She's going to be at Brooks next year. She's with Cassie Ling off that Junior Eagles team that just won the National Championship with the 14, excuse me.
A lot of hockey.
A lot of hockey these past 2 months. So, yeah, those two are ones I would look for at Brooks, especially providing a little bit of juice to their forward group. And then Caroline Cruz, also out of that Junior Eagles team. She was at St. Mark's this past year. St. Mark's had that really big run to the small school title game. And, they lose a couple productive forwards, so I imagine there will be a bigger chance for her. And Elizabeth Averill as well, Andover. We know the Averill sisters very well. Yeah. They need no introduction, and there's one more coming up into prep, Liz Averill.
That's incredible.
Do you want to skate fast? For 50 years, Laura Stam instructors have taught youth players to pros how to skate correctly, powerfully, and fast. Players who attend Laura Stam power skating programs learn how to skate fast by learning how to execute every maneuver in hockey. They become powerful, stable, efficient, and explosively fast skaters. If you can't wait for a clinic, join our subscription skills video service, and we'll show you the skills taught at our clinics in an easy-to-use video format with training plans to guide your training. Register or subscribe now at laurastam.com. That's LauraStamm.com. You can learn to skate fast.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
So I say, go top shelf, upper 90s, right under the crossbar. Any questions?
Professor, the NCAA Lacrosse Championships are coming to Boston. Are we ready?
You prepared to get loud, face paint up, bring boom boom to Beantown? Oh, you're ready. The NCAA D1, D2, and D3 men's and D1 women's lacrosse championships, May 23rd through the 26th in Boston. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/tickets.
I think it's time for overtime.
It is.
Overtime.
Yes, we return once again to overtime. I have 3 questions for both of our panelists here. They are unprepared, shaking in their skates. Let's get started with question number 1. Evan, we'll start with you. Is there a story that you've wanted to cover, publish, that you couldn't for any some reason? Maybe the story went away, or maybe something you'd always like to look into but never have. I'm basically asking you to reveal all your secrets here, Evan, so get to it. No, a story that you perhaps really wanted to cover, ended up not doing.
That I covered up.
Well, or that you covered up, yeah.
In this job, there's a story I want to do on, I'll be honest, BB&N boys hockey. What's going on with that? How can it get better? It's a great school. It's in a great spot. They get a lot of good students. How are they not better? And I know Ed Bourget is working on that right now, but that was a story I remember kind of kicking around last summer. I just never got around to it. I will tease this, Pat, you know this. I have a big high school hockey history story coming. I'm not going to say what it is or what it's on. I've literally been working on it for a year and a half.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so that'll come at some point.
In the business, we call this a teaser.
The teaser,
Nicely
yes.
done. That was a good teaser. Pat, your thoughts? Anything you haven't covered, maybe would like to cover in the future?
I'm trying to think. I feel like I had a couple last summer that just didn't really, come to fruition. But I know in one that jumps off the bat that I can probably do soon is Evan had this past fall, like what would the MIA look like if there was no prep schools? Like, and we're not going to worry about like St. John's Prep and Malden Catholic and those schools because those kids can go anywhere. But like, what would these public school hometown teams look like if all these kids were just playing for their hometown? And so I think that'd be really cool to do on the girls' side, where MIA still has some pretty good prospects in it. But obviously, we're seeing more and more kids make the jump to prep, like you're seeing on the boys' side. So, yeah, that'd be fun.
Creative thought, Evan. Give him a raise.
Yeah, that's right.
All right,
On it.
Question number 2 I know you guys are independently wealthy for all the money you've made in hockey journalism.
Very.
Yes, I mean, we all are
printing money.
Very profiting off this.
Pat, you can start with this one. What's your most unpopular opinion about the sport of hockey? Now, looked at it, I could have phrased this a different way and say something. What's something about hockey that you love that everybody hates, or something that you hate that everybody loves, or your just most unpopular opinion, a little on an island on this one? Any thoughts, Pat?
Oh man, I definitely have some, and I just can't think of any off the top of my head right now. But I guess recency bias. Not anything about the game, but it's, Don Sweeney is a really hot topic of conversation. Really hot topic conversation. And you get, Evan and I were talking about this, and, you get the people in one corner who say he sucks, everything he does is terrible. You get the people in the other corner, it's not his fault, he's done the best he can.
He's the best.
And neither of them are right. If you just, there's no more nuance. Like, you just got, like...
Truth's in the middle.
It's in the middle. Like, he's fine. Like, there's nothing, like, the drafting has been horrible. They've had their hits in free agency. They've had their misses in free agency. It kind of levels out. They've done really well at the trade deadline, typically, especially when they've been pushing the chips into the middle. And then we talked about this, like, this past year, you pretty much did the best you could with the selling off. And so it kind of levels out. And he's meh. He's fine. You're not going to probably get that much of an upgrade out there. Like the Islanders with Mark Bergevin, that does not excite me.
No, it doesn't.
Or Matthew Darsh doesn't excite me at all. Like, it's like, yeah, a lot of the things have been really bad, but like, I guess it could be worse.
If Sweeney was fired, he would be hired within 3 days. That's my take. I think he'd be hired immediately.
He's fine, and he's done there's no middle ground. It's just kind of annoying, and I feel like I'm on an island, whether it's with my buddies or whatever.
Yeah, when you get a front office position, I think people don't grade them fairly. It's what you're saying. I totally agree with you. We've become a country, not just in hockey, we've become a country.
It's all hot takes.
Incapable of nuance. Yeah. You're in or you're out. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. No, he was a cheater who was a system quarterback. Come on. So
Scotty Scheffler's a system golfer.
That's right.
But like we all, I remember Theo Epstein once said, we have a saying around the offices, we don't know bleep. We don't really know anything. We're just making our best guess. And that's why if, everyone's saying the New England Patriots had an amazing draft, and that's become the chorus. What a draft. We don't know.
We have no idea.
We don't know yet. Anyway, That's a good one, Pat. Evan, you've had a lot of time to think about this.
I have. Okay. I agree with, I think you and I are kind of in lockstep on Sweeney. Like, it's not, you don't need to fire him. He's fine, but it's not perfect either. Hockey-wise, I've brought this up before. Not a huge issue like with the game itself, but just a little thing I see coaches telling their kids to do. When the defenseman rounds the net and the other team's changing and there's an opponent and his wing is at the far blue line, just standing stationary, and the D is like, rushing up to make that pass, and everybody's yelling for him to do it. Why? He's stationary. The winger is just standing there. Like, you have the entire rest of the guys on the ice are skating directly at him. He is standing there stationary. 9 times out of 10, he chips it in or he turns it over. Like, rarely have I seen that pass up to the wing and then he dangles through guys and scores. It never happens. And I don't know why. The defender is turning around the net and they have all the speed in the world and they have space. Let them just go. Let them take it. Get out, or get open near the blue line, whatever, when he gets into the neutral zone. But that's one thing I can't stand. And then another thing, this is more big picture, and I don't know if this is unpopular, but like, when does the youth sports bubble burst? When does, there's so much money that you need to play hockey. That's why, we have a podcast coming out with Eric Boganicki, and we talk a lot about how, Jake didn't play all year, and he played baseball, and he's an example of, you can do it. Now, obviously, he has good genetics, he's athletic, all those different things. He's kind of, he's not the norm, but, the amount of money and time you have to pour into hockey to get a sniff at even playing consistently in prep school? When does that end? Because like obviously it cuts out a ton of people from being able to play hockey because it's too damn expensive. And it's all sports. All sports have gotten way too expensive. But like when does that bubble burst? Because like when we have kids someday, is it going to be like triple the price, or you need to have them play like all the time? And we see what's going on and how it's going. And so it's like I think people probably agree with me. I just don't think people want to actually. They just want to go along with it. They don't really care to do anything about it. So I'm very curious. Like when do we ever go in the other direction? I'm guessing
man
no.
after my own heart. There, that could be its own podcast.
Yeah.
Like
Well, it's true. The focus on one sport, the amount of money poured into, I guess, club hockey or whatever, people hiring personal coaches, the whole deal, right?
I mean, you have kids who don't like, and I'm going to sound like a 100-year-old person here. During the summer, they don't have time to like work or have a job because it's just like I'm training in the morning, I'm skating in the afternoon. It's like you're 15 years old, and I
caddy.
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
I worked at Target. And I completely understand it. These kids are really good and they have a dream and they're pursuing it. That's awesome. But I'm very curious, like, do we ever go the other direction?
Yeah.
Probably
well,
not.
you might see numbers start to go down. I mean, to draw a comparison, my son, who has since graduated college, but in his day in high school, he played baseball and basketball and did not quite as crazy as some of the parents go, but we definitely paid for trainers here and there. Definitely was on AAU teams, and by his junior year, he was sick of both of them. He quit both of them. He started playing Ultimate Disc, and he ended up being the captain of the varsity Ultimate Disc team, and he loved it because it was low maintenance, not as much pressure. The kids genuinely enjoy each other and enjoy the sport. So you might see people drifting to other sports. I don't know what that might be. But we're not trying to kill the sport of hockey here, though.
No.
Please, young people,
that's
keep
a
playing hockey.
Conversation for another day.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've handled a couple heavy things. Let's end with a little bit of dessert here. And the final question for overtime: if you had the opportunity to ride the Zamboni around at the Boston Garden or your your arena of choice, what song would you want playing as you took your triumphant lap in the Zamboni around the ice? Evan, you want to take that one first?
Oh God, a song?
Yeah, you consider it your personal triumphant theme song if you like.
Freebird.
Man,
Please no.
Stole it right from you, didn't I?
yeah, you did.
I would take it if it's the end of Freebird, when the
you know
guitars
what?
come in.
Levels by Avicii.
That's a good one. I like that.
Banger.
Pat, what do you got?
I'm trying to think here, like something that's just like, you're not quite like getting pumped up, fired up, but like just a good vibe.
Yep.
One that I always like, you probably could, you wouldn't be able to listen to all the words. Fantastic Voyage by Coolio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I love that
slide,
song.
slippity slide.
Yeah.
And it's appropriate. Yeah, you got slide.
Yeah,
slide
it's
across
just
the
such
ice.
a good
Wow.
beat. It's such a
Smart.
good beat.
Yes. Well, excellent answers both.
What about you, Yaz?
I'd probably do Without Me by Eminem.
I like it.
Anytime someone sings about Trailer Park Girls in the opening line, you get you fired up.
I want to get on a Zamboni.
Well, yeah. We all deserve our Zamboni moment. Maybe someday, guys. But well done in overtime. Congratulations. And I'll see you at the Avicii concert, Evan.
That's right. Well, rest in peace. I wish you'd do another concert.
Oh, sorry.
That's
the Avicii tribute show.
Avicii tribute show.
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
Well, that's RinkWise. Pat, we'll have a lot more in the coming weeks. Magazines, more content.
Girl selections.
That's right. And that's it. We'll see you at the rinks.